Good morning, Naomi, or rather good evening to Orcas Island.
Yes,
Thank you for making yourself available for this short interview. I think it's going to be helpful for people here to get an idea on what to expect from the forthcoming events with you in Vienna. Well, raising ourselves. That's the title of your book, which has been translated into 17 languages. It's also going to be the title of the evening lecture in Vienna, which is thought to be kind of an introductory lecture for people who are not at all or not that familiar with your teachings. So could you tell us what topics you usually cover in such a lecture?
you know, I don't speak the same lecture over and over again. I actually change depending on the people. So sometimes I first ask to see who is in the room, what ages of children, so that I have an idea, and how many of them, raise attachment parenting or more mainstream. So I get a little sense of the audience. But my goal is to help parents learn or get an idea. It's just an introduction, but to see that there is a way to raise children so that they behave well and they thrive and they're happy and they behave well and cooperate of their own free will. Not that they're afraid of the parent, not that they want to appease or impress the parent or anyone. So there's no anxiety. It's not a compliance. It's actually a free will. It's actually wanting to. And I think that's what every parent wants. No parent wants to punish or yell or scold or threaten. Parents love their children. And if they really knew how to do that so that the child will behave well and the child will feel competent and content and cooperative, then they would like to do that. So that's the breakthrough. And it means that parents have to be open-minded, and I try to speak about how to do that, how to listen, to break through the automated already thinking, like how we always have it, or what we learned from our parents to do. So how do we raise a child who grows up without fear or an anxiety or a desire to please us, so that the child is feeling pleasant inside? That's all we want. When I am feeling pleasant inside, then I'm pleasant outside, right? That's true for all of us. And that is true for children. If they feel wonderful inside, they'll be wonderful and kind and cooperative outside. So many times when they don't cooperate, they're defiant or misbehaving, or what we call misbehaving, it's because of something that they actually need that we don't see. And when I talk in the workshop or in the evening, in the introduction a bit about what it is that we misunderstand, what it is like when a child does this, let's say a child hits their brother or sister, how to find what is the actual cause of this tendency or need to do something that we don't think is an appropriate behavior. And when we find the reason, then we can address it. So I try to teach some basic skills of course, in one lecture, we're not going to learn everything, but just to get a little bit of the context and the change we have to do in ourselves. It's about raising ourselves, really, in order to be able to see, oh, the child has a need. A child is feeling anxious. The child is jealous of the sister or brother. A child is feeling lonely, left out, tired, needing, so we can prevent those behaviors and we can heal their source so that the child doesn't behave badly again, not because of fear or wanting to please us, but because he doesn't have the need to anymore. Whatever the need was, whatever the stress or the jealousy or the, needing attention and more care, it just goes because we understand what the need is. So when we do that, then we don't need ever to punish, to coerce, or to control or threat, or even praise a child in order to get her to do what we want. So it's a shift in paradigm. We can learn so many things to do in a way that makes the child self-reliant and wanting to do well. And also, I will be covering how to develop in the child emotional resilience. You know, powerful people, again, it relates to what I said in the first section. Powerful people are not those that are afraid to do anything wrong and are just obedient, good little boys and girls. Don't become these powerful people usually, but they are actualizing themselves. So I teach to trust the child and to find what she or he needs so we can provide, so he can flow with himself. And I even show in this lecture, if I remember to, or depends on what comes up, how compliance or obedience, like the very good child, are actually harmful and do not lead to authentic and powerful, authentic cooperation or powerful way of being, but to fear and anxiety. And those are not the good reason to behave well. So we want good behavior, we want cooperation, we want the child to learn and to succeed, but we want them to do it with joy and with love and because they want to. And that's really kind of the bottom line of the context of what I will be covering. And of course, I'll get to the details. Parents will be able to ask questions of their own lives from all ages, and then we'll get to the different subjects that parents bring up.
Thank you. Now, staying with books, if you were to write a second book, what would you feel urged to talk about?
First of all, that second book is kind of written.
Oh, okay.
It's a mess. It just needs a lot of editing, and I'm very slow at that. And I'm busy speaking and counseling, and you know, it's just there's always something, or writing articles for magazines around the world. So it keeps being on the back burner and not materializing as fast as I wish it did. But I would clear up some of the misconceptions that the first book brought up. I think a lot of people misunderstand being kind and allowing the child to actualize themselves. They misunderstand it as license, as do whatever you want. And then out of kindness, like a lot of parents who breastfeed on request and try to sleep together in the early years and do all the nice, kind things, they're afraid that the child will be somehow harmed if she cries, if she doesn't get what she wants. So, but freedom is not license. So I'm going to make that a lot clearer. And at the same time, I will make even clearer that children are our equals with less experience. It's like somebody comes into this planet and you've been here for a while and they haven't, but they're not lesser than you. And it's that level of respect of someone who is not lesser than you, but is less experienced and needs your guidance and your nurturance, that makes us able to respect a child. Because in the old paradigm, there is a lot of disrespect. We talk to children the way we don't talk to adults. We tell them what to do. We're treating them like we're the boss. So I would go a little deeper into that. But the main thing, and I started with not the main thing. The main thing I would focus on is using self-inquiry in a real deep way. So like the work of Byron Katie type work, for the parents to really heal themselves and free themselves, so that then they don't need any instructions for parenting, because if they're healed and they're content and they're pleasant inside, then it's very easy to be wise. We all love our children and want to do the right thing. And sometimes the right thing is just blocked by our own anxiety and by our own emotional reactions. So I would demonstrate through processes of doing this inquiry so that parents get a hang of how they can do it themselves and become present to their children so that they can find the solution on their own without any help because they're present and they see. Because parents always ask me, how come you're being with us and you see what's going on and what's wrong and we don't even see it? Well, I see it because it's not my child, first of all. So that makes it easier. I've been blind to a lot of things with my own children. But the seeing comes also with the clarity, with the freedom from the reaction. We want to respond to the child, not to react. So
Thank you.
The focuses.
You mentioned your own children, sons, without ever sending them to any educational institute. They rather indulged in self-directed learning, and when they asked for a teacher, you organized one. And assuming that you yourself went to school, do you hear me?
Yes, I had to go open the door for the cat.
Actually, I've always been wondering, assuming that you yourself went to school, how you came up with the idea of choosing that different path for your sons, and even more, from where you derived the confidence that they would thrive and become fit for life that way.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, but for me, it was the other way around. I would feel very insecure to send my child to school because my experience going to school was not so great, and I don't see great results coming from it either. I don't remember what I learned much. I think what I'm stuck with is the bad things I learned: competitiveness, anxiety, fear, testing, insecurity because of the fear, what the teacher would say, will they catch me, fear, and not liking learning for a while. I love learning now, but it took a while to recover the love for learning. Also, I wouldn't call it indulge, because children don't indulge. They actually learn a lot more when you don't impose on them to learn something they don't want to learn. So anyway, so for my own decision, it was kind of the obvious, because I didn't want to do to them what was done to me that didn't work. I didn't appreciate the result of what schools have produced. I see children come out of school, they're not ready for real life because they haven't been in real life for 12 years. They've been in we live in a democracy, and they've been in autocracy and inequality. And they've been in a classroom with the same age, so nobody can help anybody, which is, again, not like real society, with some authority telling them what to do, competing for attention, wishing the other student will have the wrong answer so they can impress the teacher. So in other words, a culture of hate socially, a culture of non-cooperation, wanting the other one to fail, a culture of short span of attention. The bell rings after 1 hour. You can't study for longer than that. While at home, children focus for days, for 10 hours at a time sometimes, and other days play all day. But they have an amazing focus. They focus on what they really are interested in. They study a lot faster than any school can teach them, a lot faster. School makes things so slow, it's just incredible. And there's so many stories about that, that we will cover in the workshop, that I will share actual anecdotes of children who cover 6 years of math in just a couple of hours. It really doesn't take that long. My own youngest did this equivalent of matriculation exams at the end of high school. He did it at age 15 because he was going to college at such a young age. A lot of homeschoolers go to college a lot earlier because they're already ready. But there are certain tests of like completing high school equivalent that you have to do. And he studied for it for 3 weeks. And he's not a genius in academics. He's a prodigy in music, but he told me that he's a normal kid. And I didn't even see the material. I was not involved. He ordered it online. It was $200. He just asked me for the credit card. That's the one thing that I know. And then driving him to the test a few days in a row. And, getting a hotel on the mainland because we live on an island. That's all I know from that test. So he studied for 3 weeks. He passed all the tests in very good grades, some of them excellent. And when I asked him, so how do you explain that everything they learned by age 18, you did at age 15 and you studied for 3 weeks? Because this is the one child, I have, my other children did a lot of study on their own over the years. But this kid was focused on music. He was conducting and playing instruments and just analyzing music, but he wasn't interested in other things. So I said, how do you explain that? And he said, I don't know. They must not be doing much. That because it's not much material and it wasn't hard. And I'm not a genius. I had to study. But, so that was just an example. I also know thousands of families and people who grew up without indoctrination of a classroom or through the democratic schools that are like homeschooling, but in a group with other wonderful things that they do together. And they go to universities, they do life, they're successful people. My sons are successful and independent, each doing their own thing. 2 of them are musicians, and one of them has 2 different things. And, each one is doing their life very happily, very competently, and professionally. They all have a degree from university, and they excelled. I mean, my youngest son was called to the stage as, got the academic award for best student when he graduated one of the best schools in the world. I mean, so I have no complaints about what came out of it. But I was never afraid. You say if I wasn't worried, how I had the confidence. I would not have the confidence to send my child to school because that's risky to me. To send them to study with somebody I don't know, a teacher, why would I trust a stranger? I mean, I don't trust a stranger easily to take care of my car. I want to know that the mechanic is good and that he doesn't lie. And, I wouldn't feel comfortable sending my kid to be with some strange teacher and strange children. I mean, yeah, they become friends, hopefully, but they have their influences on my child. So to me, that seems a lot more risky. And then with all the things that happen in school, that John Taylor Gatto, who won 3 times Best Teacher of the Year in New York City and in New York State. And he writes in his books about all the things that they really learn in school that are really harmful, like bad social skills because of competitiveness, same age, and being controlled and seeking the attention and becoming cliquey in groups. They learn short attention span because of the bell ringing. They lose their passion and their motivation often because they're learning to do things that they don't enjoy doing out of duty. So they kind of develop that nuisance-y feeling about studying. And a lot of them for a while don't even like learning. They learn to please others instead of do what they're passionate about. They learn to live in anxiety and fear about doing tests and learning certain things that are expected of them instead of what they really are passionate about from inside. And believe me, they're passionate. Look at 2 years old. When you raise them at home, that more, and the 3 years old, why, mommy? Why this, why that? Take things apart, learn. That doesn't go away. Why would it go away? The only reason you see it going away in children is because they go to school. If they don't go to school, it doesn't go away. And I want to say something. I'm not against schools. There are ways like the democratic schools, the Reggio Emilia schools. There are now a lot of schools around the world that are trying to actually find the best way. And there have been even research studies to see what happens when children are in an environment that's non-competitive, non-testing, not same age, that it's all loving and communal and supports the direction they want to go in. And the results of these studies, as well as what we see in those schools, is the kids' social skills are billion times better. And also with the homeschoolers who are with adults and learn from adult social skills and with different ages and with real society rather than isolated from reality. So they're learning the real skills of relating that are not competitive and not hateful, not wanting the other one to lose. And in that experiment too, they did not develop competitiveness. They played some competitive games, but not with, they weren't competitive in the day-to-day relationship. And also in real life, we learn a lot about being, not just accumulating academic knowledge. And I wanted my children to have that powerful being, that self-awareness, the confidence, trusting themselves, and questioning. School is so busy giving answers and academic knowledge and accumulating and who knows more, that we neglect to develop the part of the brain that's true knowledge, that's wisdom, that's who we are, the ability to be joyful, the ability to have happiness even if circumstances aren't great, the ability to question rather than constantly look for answers, because the anxiety to look for answers prevents us from really learning. All discovery comes from doubting and questioning. So, and there, you know, one of the places I'm going to give a few workshops in is Arco School in Bern, Switzerland. So when I say I'm not against school, I'm only for children and for, you know, helping them and giving them the environment that they can really thrive in and also behave well. Schools has bullies, and because of the hierarchy, that doesn't happen in that way in a relationship that's nurturing and that the child feels free in. But ARCO is one example. The group of homeschoolers created with, I think, partly funds from the government and partly their own. They rented a building, a nice, like, estate, beautiful building that has different rooms, which is kind of the kind of school, if I created a school, that's what I would do. It's more like a library or a learning museum. So it has a music room and an acrobatics and gymnastics room and geography room, and each room, and painting room and math room. And there are different rooms with facilities for whatever a child may want. And different parents have different skills, and they're willing to take turns being in different rooms and responding to children's needs if they have questions. So they have like a knowledge park, a place where they come to daily with the parents, or the parents may go away, some of them, and some stay. It's a whole community, and they can play. And the best learning is through play. Children play not for a bad reason, for a very good reason. They learn so much in their play on top of actually reading and acting and arts. And in school, they don't develop enough arts or enough being or any of that. So those are some of the many reasons I could go on and on about that. But I will cover that in the full day workshop more thoroughly. So I hope to see lots of people there to really examine that possibility. And it doesn't mean that they would necessarily homeschool. I have a lot of clients whose children go to school and even public school, and I help them within what they want to do in parenting. I'm not the kind of person who believes in a dogma, you know, one way, and this is the best one, you have to do what I did or what I think is right. I don't believe in that. I believe in love, in healing yourself so that you can be there for your child, and in finding what's optimal for you and for your child and family. Not every parent is good for homeschooling. I've told parents before that, to find maybe alternative school when they're concerned, or democratic school, rather than because you have to see if you can do it. It's not that you have to teach them, they really learn on their own, you have to provide. But being at home with children all day long, they do need some social, they do need a community as they grow older. So it is a lot of commitment on the parent side. It's wonderful. I mean, it's just you get to kind of learn again yourself with them. You're homeschooled in every way. But it doesn't mean that it's the best thing for every child or every family. I'm working with a family right now who have only one daughter. They're not planning more. And for an only child, it's not always a good idea. This is a very social girl. So I actually suggested to her to look at some alternative schools instead of just going full blast into homeschool. Right now she homeschools and it's working well. But the child does like some to expand and be in a community more than is easy to do as an only child. When you have few children, they're each other's companion, for good or for bad. Sometimes it doesn't quite work. And it's important that they have other friends with whom it does work. There are different situations. But anyway, I just want to stress that there's no one way, and I'm not into dogma. You asked me about what I did with my kids and what I know about a lot of clients, and I know a lot about homeschooling, about the democratic schools, and about letting children grow up in freedom, not in license, not without guidance or parental leadership. And the results are phenomenal. You get amazing people coming out of it. I know people that went to university at age 12, homeschoolers, for parents who are concerned with academic. Most of them, if they want to go to college, they go to college, and the deans of universities will love them because they're not another child who just got the good grades and is a good, just following the route. They're usually somebody who thinks for themselves, who have done a lot more than they do in school, because in school it's hard to teach much. When you do it in a group of same age, you can't go very fast. You can't cover very much. So children who, when they go to college and they meet the dean or the teacher are usually quite enamored with these homeschoolers or graduates of homeschooling or the free schools, because these kids are a lot more mature, socially more developed, emotionally more developed, and really love learning. My sons used to tell me that they go home and they do more homework than the teacher told them in college, because they all went to universities and graduated. And they say that other kids would ask them, why are you doing more than you're asked? Because that's another thing school teaches you. Do as little as you can to get by. But kids who are free do not learn that horrible lesson. They actually want to do the most and get the most out of it. So my kids actually discussed with me stuff that they learned in university. I learned history and literature, and sometimes read in one of my son's literature class. He got me reading the same books so we can discuss them, because he was so interested and so enthusiastic. So it's lots of good stuff, good for the parents too. And really each parent have to find their own way. That was a very long answer well, the question is not a short one, it's a giant one. So
exactly. And it really became visible, the experience you draw from. And I think this is very valuable for your audience.
Yes.
But now we have extensively covered homeschooling. And in my first question, you have given us the overview on the topics for an introductory event. I'm curious now, what other areas are comprised by your daily work with parents all over the world? And let's make this the concluding question and try to keep it short.
Yes, I will. So I'll make it more like a list of what I cover. Everything parenting, from babies through teenagers. So avoiding power struggles, tantrums, crying, behavior, siblings without rivalry. That's a big subject that always comes up. Learning, of course, teenagers, and their needs, socializing and how to meet the need well, how to develop talent, how to be respectful, sleep issue, bedtime, how to be leaders and guide your children without being controlling, but without having the child having power over you, which is a lot of the time the mistake in trying to be very kind, that we forget to not let the child to also be authentic ourselves. How to nurture high self-esteem so the child stays rooted in themselves rather than grow up looking to seek approval from outside, which is insecurity. So a lot of healing the selves, how to deal with relatives as well. The in-law stories often come up. So how to develop artistic talents. But a lot of the behavior issues really come up in these workshops. And I try to spend enough time on answering questions and working deeply into the emotional issues that come up in the every activity of the parents, so that they can be free and so that the child can stay rooted in themselves. Because when a child is rooted in themselves, really makes them so much more confident. They cannot be taken advantage of, fall for peer pressure. So we want that strength. Emotional resilience is a big subject. So I think that's kind of I'm sure there are more subjects that I can't think about right now. But it's what everything parenting I do cover in my workshop. The 3 days workshop covers just about everything, and there is an advanced workshop. But I think in Vienna I'm doing a 1-day workshop, so I try to stay focused on these subjects without spreading too far, but answering as many questions as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Naomi, for sharing those insights in your life and work. We are excited about your coming to Vienna, and we're looking forward to spending a wonderful day with you on October 18th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.